FYF Sportsman, it's Lamont here. We back with a news podcast video. As you can see by the title today, we got some really interesting news to talk about today. Before we get started, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to the video. Again, we drop, very unique and perspective videos all the time. We try to drop videos once or twice a day. Stay engaged. The only way you know when these videos drop, hit that notification bell when you subscribe. But today, you guys, as you may have seen already, I dropped a breaking news story on Conor McGregor and his sexual assault allegations. And when I was just looking over his story and how it was being portrayed by the media, or how little it was being portrayed by the media, it made me just do some research, into how the media has reacted to, similar allegations against black athletes, and then also how the media targets certain players or schools when these incidences happen, and just some of the outcomes. And I wanted this podcast video just to be solely focused on Shawn Oakman and his particular story with Baylor University. Shawn Oakman was a football player who played for Baylor University. He was accused in April of 2016 a sexual assault against another student, and these allegations came right after he completed the NFL Combine, a few days away from the NFL Draft. When these allegations came out, his draft stock plummeted. He was projected to be a first-round draft pick. He ended up going undrafted, and then soon after, he was arrested on charges of second-degree felony assault, and he was facing up to 20 years in prison once he was arrested. And so I wanted this podcast to be purely focused on that particular story and how he was exonerated. But while I was in just doing my investigation, I'm trying to collect videos and information on what actually happened. The one common theme that I really saw that just was really alarming was how ESPN has tried to distance itself from this particular story, and why they're trying to distance themselves from it. Now, when this story first broke, now this is something I can vividly remember, because I remember when this story broke, it was all over ESPN. And at that particular time, one of my favorite shows was First Take, with Stephen A. Smith, with Molly Karam. This was one of my favorite shows at the time when this particular story broke on ESPN. And it was at this point in time where, although Shawn Oakman had, he was only facing charges. He had not been convicted of anything. He was only, all these were only allegations. We didn't even really have the evidence. And, this was basically a story of he say, she say, where she said it was assault, rape. He was saying that it was consensual. And ESPN allowed Stephen A. Smith and Molly Karam to go on an epic rant, just basically degrading Baylor University, degrading the culture of Baylor University football, degrading the administration, essentially saying that the administration was allowing this type of culture, and they basically portrayed this man, Shawn Oakman, to be guilty before even seeing a shred of evidence. And that was very clear. I vividly remember this. So, as I'm doing my research, I'm just trying to find this video because I wanted to make that particular video a part of my story for Shawn Oakman, and how the media with black athletes, they'll demonize a black athlete before he even has his day in court. But when Conor McGregor is accused of similar crimes, we have to find it on the back pages of TMZ websites, or just scrolls briefly by on the ESPN ticker. No one's making a big story about it. No one's claiming that there's a culture, a rape culture in UFC. No one's claiming that Conor McGregor is starting to get out of control and something needs to be done about it. No one's making all these outlandish allegations about Conor McGregor, the UFC, or just MM fighting in general. Nobody's making these generalizations. But those generalizations were made about Baylor football, the Baylor football community, the Baylor coaching staff, and even the athletic department, saying that they were harboring athletes who committed a lot of these rapes against students. And that ultimately turned out to be false. So in the midst of doing my investigation, I'm trying to find these videos. I'm like, where is this video where Molly Karam and Stephen A. Smith go on this epic rant against Shawn Oakman, you know, talking about how disgusted they are with him and his actions and things of that nature. The one thing that I quickly found after doing my research, and I spent about 2 hours looking for this information, ESPN has removed all video of any ESPN analyst speaking on this particular topic. Prior when this story dropped, it was all over ESPN. You had multiple ESPN news outlets speaking on the story. You had multiple ESPN analysts giving their take on this particular story. You had multiple ESPN analysts, from football analysts to guys like Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Molly Karam. They were all speaking on this particular issue. Now all of a sudden, when Shawn Oakman is found not guilty of these crimes, and not just found not guilty, evidence was released that the victim intentionally deleted her Snapchat chat account, intentionally deleted text messages, intentionally did a lot of things to give the impression that she was raped to avoid the shame. And ESPN didn't speak on it. ESPN didn't release a big story. They didn't go back and no one spoke up about how damaging these false rape allegations are, especially the women who actually really are raped. Like these cases right here are more damaging to real victims, because now real victims, when they go to report these cases, the police are going to be questioning you, and they're going to be questioning you as if you were the aggressor, because it's just starting to become a trend that a lot of these cases are being found to be false. And again, in his particular case, we got to think about Shawn Oakman's particular situation. Now, I did the research on this. The man went broke trying to fight this case. He spent $60,000 on a paid attorney. $60,000 on a paid attorney all the way up until the trial. Okay, all the way up until the trial. When evidence came out that was extremely damaging towards the prosecution and the victim's claims, the prosecution attempted to offer Shawn Oakman a plea deal, a very gracious and generous plea deal that he actually rejected. He said, "I'm rejecting it, even though I could walk out this courtroom free today with very, very little probation. I'm going to reject that plea deal because I know I'm innocent." He rejected a plea deal that a lot of people would have taken because, again, because of what you're risking when you go into trial. But he said, "I'm not signing that. We're going to go to trial." The day before he was supposed to go to trial, his paid attorney said, "For me to go to trial, I need another $60,000 from you." The man already sold and auctioned off his Big 12 championship rings just to pay for the attorney's retainer fees up until that point. Now the attorney needed another $60,000. He didn't have it. He didn't have the $60,000 for She walks away from the case a day before trial. A day before trial, he now has to retain the services of a public defender. You know, that plea deal, when you have a public defender, that plea deal starts to look more tempting when you have a public defender defending you going into trial. Because we all know, you know, the public defenders, their real name is not public defenders. They're called public pretenders. They pretend to represent your case, but they essentially work for the prosecutor's office in trying to get you convicted. That's what a public defender's job is. It's to pretend that they're trying to represent you, and they want you to sign that plea deal. Shawn Oakman still held his ground. He still went into trial, and he allowed the jury to hear the evidence. The victim testified on the stand, but at the end of the day, the witness testimony could not overcome the evidence on hand. The evidence on hand was that she intentionally manipulated text messages. She intentionally deleted things to make it appear a certain way. There were witnesses who said that she told her friends that night, "Don't wait up for me. I'm staying the night at his place." I mean, she gave every indication to everybody that she knew that everything that her and Shawn Oakman did that night was consensual. So the man was actually found not guilty. The man was found not guilty. ESPN didn't say a word. ESPN then deleted any media on YouTube or on the internet where ESPN analysts were extremely aggressive towards Shawn Oakman, with allegations with regards to what he did. The ties between ESPN and Shawn Oakman getting charged, Shawn Oakman, losing draft stock. ESPN is partially responsible for why he lost millions of dollars. Which is why they followed it up once he was found not guilty. This is one of the reasons why they went into damage control, and they started deleting videos. They started deleting information from their own site, from YouTube, that showed they were culpable in liable and damaging this man's reputation. And I think it's just sad. I think it's extremely sad that ESPN would go to those links. As opposed to just stepping up to the plate and saying, you know what, these allegations, we're happy to see that Shawn Oakman was found not guilty. We're happy to see that no one was raped. Instead of stepping up, admitting the wrong in this particular case, they go into damage control mode and they start deleting videos that shows ESPN analysts convicting this man before he even had his day in court, convicting Baylor University before any of these athletes had their day in court, and it's sad. It's sad. This is, in ESPN, you wonder why your ratings are starting to plummet. You wonder why people don't trust your media and your insider information anymore. This is why. You're extremely biased towards particular agendas. Extremely biased towards particular agendas, and you're not about telling the truth. And this proves it right here. Because ESPN had an opportunity to help this man resurrect his career. They intentionally participated in tearing down his career, intentionally, before he had his day in court. And when he was found not guilty, they said nothing about his innocence. They didn't say anything. There were no breaking news stories on ESPN saying that he was found not guilty. Stephen A. Smith didn't go on First Take talking about it. Molly Karam didn't say anything about it. Max Kellerman didn't say anything about it. We have all of these media outlets who could have helped him resurrect his career. Because he immediately said after the trial, he's going to try to get back into the NFL. They could have easily helped bolster his case to get back into the NFL the same way They helped tear his career down when these allegations came about in April of 2016. So again, this is about exposing the truth about ESPN and how they have hidden agendas. Not just hidden agendas, but when they do make mistakes, it's not even about owning up to mistakes. Because we see ESPN all the time force their analysts into making public apologies when they say something wrong, when they say the wrong thing. But when ESPN itself does the wrong thing, instead of stepping forward and having all of their analysts participate in rectifying a wrong, they go into damage control mode and they start deleting content, media, and videos to hide the fact that they were even initially involved. And it's sad, man. It's sad. And you know what? And this guy, Shawn Oakman, he's not the only one. He's not the only one. And what you have to understand is when you're facing a case like this, it takes money to defend yourself. The man spent $60,000 on an attorney up until trial, and the attorney asked for another $60,000 that she knew he didn't have going into trial. I mean, when you have to sell your championship rings just to get money to pay your attorney, I mean, that's sad right there. That's sad. You know, we got another Baylor football player. You know, Sam Ugakwu. And this guy right here, unfortunately, he was actually convicted. Now, this guy was actually convicted of sexual assault. Now, in his particular case, he didn't have the financial resources to get a $60,000 attorney. He didn't have those resources. He had a public pretender. He had a public pretender working his case. So he ended up taking a plea deal, which led to very little time in jail, 10 years probation. But the prosecution got what they wanted. They got a conviction. And whenever you have a rape case where you see very, very, very small amount of time in jail or prison and a long, lengthy probation term, that's a very good indication that there's some evidence lurking about out there that can really, really put holes in that case. Prosecutors only offer very sweet plea deals like that when there are major flaws in the case and they want to find a way. Because again, when you know you have a public pretender working your case, the last thing you want to do is go into trial knowing that if you get convicted, you're going to get the max penalty. And so this guy took the plea deal. Now, he was smart about it. He was smart about it. His plea deal still allowed for him to appeal the case. And after he took the plea deal, he immediately hired an attorney to appeal the case. And when they went to appeal the case, the attorney that he had immediately found evidence to have his conviction overturned. Immediately found evidence. And again, similar to Shawn Oakman's case. Similar to Shawn Oakman's case, the victim, there was evidence that the victim deleted text messages, deleted WhatsApp messages, and deleted messages sent to her friends and family that could have exonerated or at least showed that she was not being truthful about her particular allegations towards him. And it's just almost identical. They you know, the fact that the prosecution knew about this and they withheld this information from the defense. But why? It's very easy to withhold and hide evidence from the defense when you have a public pretender working your case, because a public pretender essentially works for the prosecutor's office. It's not a public pretender's job to find you not guilty. It's a public pretender's job to get you to sign a plea bargain. That's what their job is. They get paid to essentially get you to sign a plea bargain. It gives the prosecution a conviction, so their conviction rate stays high, and they get another case off their docket. That's essentially what a public pretender's job is. And that's exactly what happened in this case. Luckily, he was able to get out. Luckily, he was able to gather the funds to get a great appeals attorney, and his conviction has been overturned, and he's going to have another day in court. And what I like about this is he's risking it all. But by having his conviction overturned, if he's found guilty, he could receive the max penalty again. So he still has a lot at stake. He still has a lot at stake, and I really respect him for continuing to fight. So now we've unveiled the fact that prosecutors hid evidence that could have exonerated him, and that evidence will probably get this particular case dismissed. But once the case is dismissed, will we hear about it on ESPN? Will we hear? We didn't even hear about his case getting overturned on ESPN. When this man was found guilty, he was the face of Baylor's so-called rape culture or rape culture on campus. This guy was the face of it, along with Shawn Oakman. But now that his case has been overturned, who knew that his case was overturned? Who knew that his conviction was overturned? Because prosecutors withheld evidence that could have exonerated him. ESPN's not going to tell you that. Fox News is not going to tell you that. CNN is not going to tell you that. MSNBC is not going to tell you that. All of these major news outlets were so quick to drop the story when the allegations or criminal charges came out against these football players. But when they're found not guilty or when their convictions are overturned, we don't hear anything about it. It's all done in silence, and no one steps up to say anything about it. This is why in my previous video against Conor McGregor, I have to call ESPN out on it. Because again, what's your true agenda? This is sexual assault allegation against Conor McGregor. But yeah, you're not treating that allegation as serious as you were treating these black athletes. What's the only difference that I can see between each of the athletes is one is white, the others are black. And you're treating them very different. It's sad. You know, we even have another case here. Nikki Uvino, the young lady that you see here on the screen. She accused two Sacred Heart football players of raping her. She accused two Sacred Heart football players of raping her, all because her boyfriend found out about it. Her boyfriend found about, he found out about what she did with the football players the next day. She immediately told him that she was raped. He took her to the police station so that she could file a police report. And when this case went to trial, it was easily discovered within the first day of the trial. It was quickly discovered while she was on the witness stand that she was lying about the whole thing. And the good thing about prosecutors in this particular case, both of these football players were facing 20 years in jail. When they found out she was lying, they immediately dropped the charges, and then they charged her with the crime of lying to the police. Obstruction of justice. But obstruction of justice, very minimal punishment. They gave her a year in jail, and she's free. Now, the two football players here, they're suing Sacred Heart University, and they're suing Nikki Uvino. These guys, their livelihoods, their careers were taken from them, all because of allegations. We see in all three incidences. When we're talking about Shawn Oakman, we're talking about Sam Achiuwu, we're talking about these two football players, Dareer Bradley and Malik St. Hilaire. All of these football players kicked out of school, NFL chances evaporated, careers decimated, all because of allegations. And in all three cases, more than likely, and I know one of the cases is still pending because that conviction was overturned and we have to have another day in court for it. But these guys' NFL careers, their livelihoods were destroyed. Their lives won't ever be the same. Whenever you Google Shawn Oakman, it's forever going to be attached to sexual assault, rape. His name is forever going to be attached to that. When you Google these two football players from Sacred Heart University, their name is forever going to be attached to this rape case. And what's so sad is I want somebody to tell me. All these cases were high profile cases and spoken about on ESPN when they were initially broke. Can anybody tell me one time when it involved a black athlete, and I say that for a reason, I'll speak on that later. When it involved a black athlete being not guilty, when have you ever seen ESPN step up, bring it to the forefront, and rectify the wrong that they did by tearing this man down prior to them getting found not guilty? Tell me one time where you've seen ESPN step up after tearing down a black man and to bring him back up because they knew they were wrong. They didn't do it with Shawn Oakman. They didn't do it with these two Sacred Heart football players. They're probably not going to do it with the other Baylor football player whose conviction got overturned and is probably going to get thrown out. They haven't done it. The only time that ESPN stepped up and spoke up for athletes who were wrongly accused was with the Duke Lacrosse team. The Duke Lacrosse team, all-white lacrosse team, those players were accused of raping a young lady on campus. The media destroyed them for it. A lot of those players were arrested. A lot of those players' families had to spend a lot of money on attorneys to get this matter rectified. When it was found that they were all not guilty, ESPN was the first one to break the news. I can remember it. And those stories are still out there on ESPN. ESPN was the first one to break the news, and it wasn't just something scrolling on the ticker. It was a story. It was a breaking news story. Duke Lacrosse players found not guilty. And all of those different shows on ESPN, everybody spoke about it. Everybody spoke about it. Nobody spoke about Shawn Oakman on ESPN. Molly Curran didn't step up and say these false allegations hurt other women. Nobody stepped up and said that. Stephen A. Smith didn't step up and say that. Max Kellerman didn't step up and say that. Mike Greenberg and all of these other shows on ESPN, Fox, nobody stepped up and said this for the black athletes that are involved. But for the white athletes, for the Duke Lacrosse team, it was plastered all over the news that they were not guilty. The ESPN wanted to make it known. They wanted to make it vividly known that the white athletes were not guilty. They wanted to make it vividly known that the accuser, who was black, lied. In some of these cases with Shawn Oakman, we don't even know the name of the accuser, but she was white. But we don't even know the name of her. They go all out to protect her information. You know, when we look at Nikki Uvino, her information only got released because she was criminally charged after the fact for lying, which made it public information. It's just sad how ESPN is starting to get like that, man. This is why they're no longer a reliable sports media outlet, especially when we're talking really very serious topics. You know, this is why they can't be trusted on matters related to politics, social issues, and things of that nature. It can't be trusted when it comes from ESPN because we see the hidden agendas. You know, I want you guys to do your own homework on this. I want you to go look up this story with the Duke Lacrosse rape case and allegations. Yes, those players, those teams, they were all vilified by ESPN. But when it was found that they were not guilty, look how ESPN helped fix the matter. Plastering the story all over the news, apologizing, paying out lawsuits. There's a lot of people responsible for denigrating those lacrosse players' names, and then they paid for it. Who's going to pay for Shawn Oakman? Who's going to pay for the two Sacred Heart University football players, Malik St. Hilaire and Demir Bradley. Who's going to pay for that? Oh, see, it's just so hush-hush when it comes to black athletes getting exonerated. I just think it's sad. ESPN, you got to do better than that. And I think people on ESPN, like Stephen A. Smith, you need to do a better job of speaking up on those things. Because Stephen A. Smith, I know you're very involved in sports news. I know you knew probably before many of us did that Shawn Oakman was found not guilty. You didn't say a word about it. But when the Baylor women's basketball coach, Kim McCokie, said something to defend her school and the reputation of her school, you jumped all over ESPN trying to denigrate her for what she was saying about how she felt the school was not infested with rape culture. But you jump all over her for making that statement. Shawn Oakman's found not guilty. You don't say a word. You say, hey, you guys, let me know what you think about this particular story. Again, I really wanted to do a full story on Shawn Oakman. I wanted to just be talking about Shawn Oakman, how he's bouncing back. Shawn Oakman's now in the XFL. He's trying to resurrect his career. You know, hopefully he can get some lawsuits against his false accusers, the university, ESPN, and some of the other media outlets that denigrated his name. Hopefully he can get some settlements so he can, so he can, recover his life, because his name is now forever ruined. But that's what I really wanted to speak on. I wanted to speak on his downfall, but also his comeback. But it was just during my investigation, I saw the shadiness of ESPN in this particular story. How shady they were. And again, I want you guys, if you guys can go find that video, I want you, because there's so many videos that I could find just by Googling them, looking up his search histories, people screenshot and screen record everything. I could not find that video of Stephen A. Smith and Molly Karam going crazy on Shawn Oakman and Baylor football and Art Briles and the rape culture down there. And all of a sudden, when we see these cases getting overturned and players getting found not guilty, no one's saying a word. And they're not saying a word because we're dealing with black athletes, man. But hey, FYF Sportsman, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to the video. Like I said, we don't do videos like this too much, so we like to stick to what's going on current in sports. But I felt like with that Conor McGregor story coming out, I really need to touch on this topic just to expose the biases that ESPN has and how they like to push certain agendas, and then how they like to go into damage control when they make mistakes. It's just sad how they want their anchors to apologize when they say things wrong on the air, but ESPN itself as a company will never apologize or rectify anything on air when they make mistakes. You guys let me know what you think about that. FYF Sportsman, another great podcast episode, and we're out.